You know, it seems like we all have this secret collective fantasy about aging. Like we all secretly want to pull a curious case of Benjamin Button and just age backward.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Or, I don't know, maybe stumble upon that glowing magic potion from Death Becomes Her so we can just stay frozen in time forever. But instead of Hollywood magic, the reality is that most of us just end up staring intensely at our own foreheads during Zoom meetings.
Yeah, just wondering when exactly that one line got so deep.
Exactly. Welcome to the Deep Dive Lab. Today, we are not just looking at how to, temporarily spackle over those creases. We are looking at the literal biological software updates, like cellular zombie hunting lasers that are changing the future of human aging.
It really is a profound shift, honestly, because high-definition cameras have definitely forced us to confront our own skin in a way humans never historically had to. But the wild part is, the medical science has finally caught up to that scrutiny.
And that is exactly our mission today. We are taking a massive stack of really fascinating clinical surveys, heavy-duty dermatology journals, and expert medical blogs, and we're going to unpack the actual science of facial aging for you. Specifically, we're talking about wrinkles, or if we want to use the fancy clinical term, rhytids.
Rhytids. I mean, it sounds much more clinical and slightly less intimidating than wrinkles, doesn't it?
It does. It sounds like, I don't know, a rare mineral or something. But the promise for you, listening right now, is that we are going to decode exactly why our skin creases. We'll explore how the aesthetic industry is undergoing this massive shift away from just filling lines to some truly sci-fi level biological regeneration.
And of course, what this actually means for your own personal skincare journey.
Right, because before we can talk about how to fix wrinkles, we need to understand the villains of this story. Why does our skin wrinkle in the first place?
Well, it's a fascinating transition. We're moving from an era of treating the symptom, so the wrinkle itself, to addressing the root cellular causes. But to understand how these new treatments work, you have to understand the underlying biology.
Okay, let's unpack this, because from what I'm reading in these papers, aging isn't just a single event. It's actually a dual-track process. So you've got intrinsic aging and extrinsic aging happening at the exact same time, right?
That is the perfect way to frame it. Let's look at intrinsic aging first.
Yeah.
This is basically your body's internal biological clock. It's genetically programmed and, well, it's inevitable.
Right, there's no stopping the clock.
Exactly. There's a great paper on this by Manupriya Chaudhary and her colleagues from the Delhi Pharmaceutical Sciences and Research University.
Oh, the one published in Current Aging Science.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah.
They highlight that starting in our 30s, our skin's natural synthesis of collagen and elastin decreases by about 1% every single year.
1% a year. I mean, on the surface, that sounds tiny, almost negligible.
It does sound small, but over a decade, that's 10% of your skin's structural integrity just gone.
Wow. Dr. Connie Hires, she's a board-certified expert we've sourced here, she uses this brilliant analogy that I love. She says to think of your skin like a favorite, well-loved sweater.
Oh, that's a good way to picture it.
Yeah. Over time, the fabric naturally just gets a little softer. It loses its shape a bit, and it develops these gentle creases.
Yeah, and if we want to look at the microscopic level of that sweater, the collagen and elastin are essentially the mattress springs of your skin.
Mattress springs, I like.
Yeah, they're these fibrous proteins that sit in the dermal layer, which is the middle layer of your skin, and they keep everything bouncy, firm, and physically anchored. So as that 1% loss compounds year after year, those springs begin to fragment.
So the body just stops manufacturing them at the rate it used to.
Exactly. The skin literally loses its structural support from the inside out.
So that's the internal clock, the intrinsic side, the slow loss of the mattress springs. But then we have extrinsic aging. And looking at the data, extrinsic aging is really the true villain of this story.
Without a doubt. Extrinsic aging is the environmental damage that gets superimposed over your natural biological decline. And the undisputed king of extrinsic aging is ultraviolet radiation from the sun.
Right, the UV rays.
Yeah, the research actually shows that up to 80% of visible facial aging is actually photoaging caused by UV rays.
80%. Wait, so the vast majority of what we consider getting older is actually just sun damage?
Basically, yes. Think of UV radiation as a pair of microscopic scissors constantly snipping at the structural scaffolding of your skin.
Oh, that's a terrifying image.
It's accurate, though. Every time you go out without protection, those invisible rays are penetrating the dermis and literally cutting your collagen strands into pieces.
So you've got the microscopic scissors, but then there are other extrinsic factors, right? Like smoking.
Oh, absolutely. While UV rays are doing the heavy lifting, Things like smoking are accelerating the breakdown.
Smoking is honestly like a Marvel supervillain. It's a biological double whammy because it attacks you from both sides.
It really does.
From the outside, the smoke and airborne chemicals directly degrade the skin's surface, but then from the inside, the nicotine actually constricts the blood vessels. So you are literally starving your own skin cells of the oxygen and nutrients they need to survive.
While simultaneously attacking them from the outside,
Yeah.
it is a devastating combination for tissue health. And this actually brings us to one of the most fascinating and, frankly, slightly terrifying concepts in the recent literature.
Oh, wait, is this the cellular senescence part?
Yes, exactly.
Because I was reading about this. This is the concept of zombie cells, right? I thought this was just a catchy headline, but it's an actual biological state.
It is very real. So in youthful skin, the cells that build those mattress springs, they are called fibroblasts. They are stretched out, tense, and highly active.
Doing their job, keeping things bounced.
Right. But as your collagen fragments, due to those microscopic UV fizzers and natural aging, these fibroblasts lose their mechanical tension. They kind of just collapse in on themselves. Now, normally, a damaged cell undergoes apoptosis.
Which is programmed cell death, right?
Correct. It essentially destroys itself for the good of the body, so a new cell can take its place.
But these fibroblasts don't die.
No, they don't. They just enter a state of cellular senescence. They stop functioning, but they absolutely refuse to trigger their own natural cell death.
Which is why we call them zombie cells. They're just sitting there, taking up space.
It's much worse than just taking up space, actually. These senescent cells become highly toxic. They start secreting a cocktail of inflammatory chemicals and these highly destructive enzymes called matrix metalloproteinases.
Matrix metalloproteinases, or MMPs. The way I understood MMPs from the reading is that they are essentially rogue demolition crews.
That's a great way to put it.
Like, their entirely biological purpose is to break down proteins. Right.
That is exactly what they do. These zombie cells secrete these MMP demolition crews, which then actively hunt down and destroy the healthy collagen surrounding them.
Wait, really? So one zombie cell can actually infect and degrade the healthy tissue in its neighborhood?
Yes. It creates a rapid, cascading, negative feedback loop of aging.
That is wild. It's not just a passive loss of collagen, it's an active destruction by our own rogue cells.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've just established that zombie cells and collagen collapse are a structural biological failure deep in the skin. So how does that internal collapse actually map out on the human face?
Well, that brings us to the clinical classification of the wrinkles themselves. We generally divide them into two categories, dynamic wrinkles and static wrinkles.
Dynamic and static.
Right. Dynamic wrinkles are the ones directly tied to your facial muscle movements.
Oh, okay. So every time you smile, laugh, frown, or thinking about you, the listener, right now, every time you binge watch a massive Hollywood blockbuster and squint at those really dark, moody scenes on your screen.
Which we all do.
Yeah, you are contracting the muscles around your eyes, and that repetitive folding of the skin creates a dynamic line.
Yes, but when you are young and your collagen mattress springs are intact, the skin snaps right back when you stop squinting.
Because it has that bounce.
Exactly. The problem occurs when the dynamic movement is paired with the loss of collagen and the presence of those toxic zombie cells we just talked about.
So the skin loses its ability to bounce back.
Right. Over time, the skin loses its mechanical ability to rebound. The temporary fold becomes a permanent crease, and that is a static wrinkle. It is etched into the skin and visible even when your face is completely relaxed.
But what I found so intriguing in the sources is that this map of static and dynamic wrinkles isn't the same for everyone. Like, we don't all age in the exact same pattern.
Not at all. And there is a really groundbreaking study on this by Xiqin Zhang and a team of researchers from the Department of Dermatology at Huadong Hospital Fudan University.
And this was published in the Journal of Biomedical Research, right?
Yes, it was. They systematically mapped and classified facial wrinkles, specifically among Chinese women.
And the results were completely different from the traditional aging models we usually see, because those older models are largely based on Caucasian skin, right?
Precisely. They didn't just map where the wrinkles were, they mapped the timeline of when they appeared. The study demonstrated how distinct the aging process is based on facial anatomy, bone structure, and dermal thickness.
So different populations actually have varying thicknesses of facial fat compartments and connective tissue.
Exactly.
So what did that actual map look like for the women in the Fudan University study?
Well, unlike Caucasian skin, which is often thinner and might show fine lines and crow's feet around the eyes much earlier in life, the study found that Chinese women often have a thicker dermis.
Okay, so a thicker foundation.
Right. And because of this structural difference, their skin resists those early fine lines. However, the weight of that thicker tissue, combined with gravity and collagen loss, means they often experience structural sagging or deeper nasolabial folds, those smile lines around the mouth, before they see fine surface wrinkles.
That makes so much sense. The thicker the fabric, the less it crinkles, but the heavier it is when the mattress springs underneath start to give out.
That's a perfect summary.
Yeah.
It really emphasizes that aesthetic treatments absolutely cannot be a one-size-fits-all approach.
Because your genetics literally dictate the geographical map of your aging.
They do.
Hmm.
And it highlights why understanding the underlying anatomy is so crucial before applying any treatment.
I just love that. It shows that these lines aren't just biological failures. They actually trace your heritage, your facial structure, your environment. They are essentially a map of a life well lived.
They really are.
But, acknowledging that they are beautiful maps of life, a lot of us still want to know how to smooth them out. So, if the foundation is crumbling differently depending on our genetics, applying a surface-level cream is kind of like painting a house with a bad foundation. How is the medical field actually fixing the foundation? Let's open up the skincare arsenal.
Let's do it. So the absolute baseline, the foundation of the foundation, is daily at-home care.
Sunscreen.
Always sunscreen. The literature is unanimous that broad-spectrum sunscreen is the ultimate preventative tool against those microscopic UV scissors.
Wow.
But once the damage starts, we have to turn to topical interventions.
And the gold standard in the reading definitely seems to be retinoids. I like to think of retinoids as personal trainers for your skin cells.
Personal trainers, yeah.
You apply them, and they basically yell at your sluggish fibroblasts, whipping them into shape, demanding that they speed up cell turnover and produce more collagen.
It's a great tool.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, a personal trainer just isn't enough to fix a collapsed house. You need professional power tools.
Power tools. Okay, let's talk about those.
This is where we are seeing a massive paradigm shift in aesthetic medicine, especially looking at the clinical trends for 2025 and 2026. For a long time, the industry standard for treating those static wrinkles and volume loss was dermal fillers, usually made of hyaluronic acid.
Right. And the strategy there was incredibly simple. See a line, inject a gel to fill the hole.
Exactly.
Which is exactly what led to that overfilled, puffy pillow face look we've seen all over Hollywood over the last decade.
Yes.
People just pumping more and more synthetic gel into their faces to stretch out the wrinkles, inflating the skin rather than actually repairing it.
Which completely distorts the natural anatomy we just talked about.
Yeah.
But the industry is moving aggressively away from that. The new era is all about rejuvenation and the use of biostimulators.
Okay, biostimulators. This is a term popping up everywhere in these sources.
Yeah.
The papers mention acronyms like PLLA, PCL, and KHA. Can we decode this alphabet soup? What are these materials and how do they actually work?
Certainly. These are different types of biocompatible materials. So PLLA stands for polylactic acid, which is essentially the exact same safe, dissolvable material that surgeons have used for decades in dissolvable stitches.
Oh, interesting.
And KRA is calcium hydroxylapatite, which is a mineral naturally found in human bones. Unlike traditional fillers that just sit under the skin as a space-occupying gel, biostimulators are microparticles injected deep into the tissue.
But if they aren't just filling space, how are they getting rid of the wrinkles?
Through your own biology. When these microparticles are injected, your immune system recognizes them as foreign material.
Okay.
It mounts a localized, highly controlled inflammatory response. Your body rushes immune cells called macrophages to the area to break down and absorb these particles.
Okay, so the immune system is actively attacking the particles. But where does the new collagen come in?
As a byproduct of that exact cleanup process, the macrophages signal the surrounding fibroblasts that there is work to do. It basically tricks the body into thinking there is a wound that needs healing.
Oh, wow.
So the fibroblasts wake up from their sluggish state and flood the entire area with brand new structural collagen to heal the perceived injury. Over a few months, the biostimulator particles completely dissolve away, leaving behind nothing but your body's own newly generated collagen matrix.
Wait, if this relies on my body's immune system to mount a response and my fibroblasts to build new scaffolding, doesn't that mean the results take way longer to show up compared to just injecting a filler?
It does. It can take several weeks or even up to 3 months to see the full aesthetic effect of a biostimulator. You really have to wait for the biological cascade to happen. It is definitely not a quick
Oh,
fix.
because it's my actual tissue being created, my own collagen, does it last longer?
Significantly longer. Because you aren't waiting for a synthetic gel to slowly degrade over 6 months. You have literally rebuilt the structural integrity of your skin.
Wow.
This is what we mean by regenerative longevity.
Yeah.
You are treating the structural weakness of the skin from the inside out, often before the deep wrinkles even fully set in, which is exactly why the industry called it rejuvenation.
That is a massive philosophical shift. We are moving from, let's hide the damage with gel to let's force the body to repair its own damage.
Precisely.
And if biostimulators are the power tools, we have to talk about the cutting-edge sci-fi tech that is actually available today. Let's talk about lasers. Because normally when you think of a laser facial, you think of burning off the top layer of skin so a fresh layer grows back.
That was the traditional ablative approach. It was quite traumatic to the skin. But the science of light and energy has evolved dramatically. We now have to look at energy-based devices like fractional lasers and picosecond lasers through a completely new lens.
Okay, lay it on me.
There is a really groundbreaking review by Jorge Najarro Rodriguez and his colleagues, published in the journal Cosmetics by MDPI. They propose that these specific lasers are actually acting as xenotherapeutics.
Xenotherapeutics. Okay, let's break that down for the listener. Xeno meaning related to senescence, which takes us back to those toxic zombie cells we discussed earlier.
Exactly. What the research by Najarro Rodriguez is showing is that the highly specific thermal and mechanical energy from these modern lasers isn't just causing a generic burn on the skin. The specific wavelengths of energy are literally hunting down, disrupting, and clearing out those toxic, zombie senescent fibroblasts from the dermis.
Wait, so the laser light is essentially a targeted zombie hunting weapon.
Yes.
It seeks out the cells that refuse to die, destroys them, and stops them from releasing those rogue demolition crews, the MMPs.
That is the exact mechanism. By clearing the toxic cells, it suppresses the chronic inflammation and essentially resets the biological age of the tissue, allowing healthy fibroblasts to thrive again without being attacked by their neighbors.
That is incredible. But I noticed the sources also talk about a different kind of energy. Moitas Eldomadi from Alminia University published a study in the Journal of the American Academy of Dermatology, but he wasn't looking at lasers. He was looking at radiofrequency, or RF.
That's an important distinction. Lasers use light energy, whereas radiofrequency uses electrical current to generate precise heat deep in the dermis, completely bypassing the surface of the skin entirely.
And what El Damiati's team found is astounding. They actually used electron microscopy to look at the human skin at a cellular level before and after these radiofrequency treatments.
Yes, the visual data is striking.
What they proved visually is that the electrical heat doesn't just create new collagen, it actually physically thickens and repairs the existing fragmented collagen bands deep in the dermis.
The electron microscopy provides undeniable visual proof. The energy restores the architectural integrity of the skin.
It literally re-welds the broken mattress springs using heat.
It really does.
But if lasers and radiofrequency are the ultimate energy weapons, we have to talk about the absolute wildest, most sci-fi tech in this entire stack of research exosomes.
Exosomes. If lasers are the hardware fix, exosomes are the software update. This is truly the absolute frontier of regenerative dermatology.
Reading about exosomes completely blew my mind. The best way I can describe them mechanically is to think of them as microscopic, GPS-enabled USB drives. Or like if you're a sci-fi fan, it's like plugging into the Matrix and downloading the instructions for how to fly a helicopter directly into your brain.
That is actually a surprisingly accurate mechanical metaphor.
Really?
Yeah. Exosomes are incredibly tiny, nano-sized fluid vesicles. They are naturally released by cells, most often harvested from potent stem cells for clinical use. But it's crucial to understand, they aren't cells themselves. They don't have a nucleus, so they cannot replicate.
They are pure messenger packets.
Right, exactly.
Right. They are tiny biological envelopes packed with highly specific genetic material like messenger RNA, lipids, and highly concentrated growth factors. And because they are so impossibly tiny and naturally occurring, they can travel seamlessly between your cells.
The clinical application is just fascinating. Typically, a dermatologist will use a laser or a microneedling device to create thousands of microscopic channels in the skin. Then they apply a serum loaded with billions of these exosomes.
So the exosomes travel down those microchannels, deep into the dermis. And because they act like GPS-enabled USB drives, they navigate the intercellular space, find the damaged aging skin cells, and fuse their membrane with the recipient cell.
And once they fuse, they directly insert their payload. They literally upload biological repair codes, that messenger RNA, that tell an old, exhausted cell to act young again, to enter a regenerative state, and to start repairing tissue.
It's literal biological hacking. I mean, we aren't just putting a nice smelling cream on top of the skin and hoping for the best anymore. We are uploading new software into our cells to fix the hardware. It is mind-boggling.
And that is the crux of how the entire field has shifted over the last few years.
Okay, we have covered some serious ground today in the lab. We've gone from the deepest layers of the skin to the cutting edge of science. Let's distill this down for you, the listener, into 3 key takeaways. First, aging is a dual-track process. You have your intrinsic ticking biological clock slowly degrading your collagen, and you have your extrinsic villains, mainly the microscopic scissors of UV rays, and the suffocating effects of pollution accelerating that damage and creating toxic zombie cells.
Second, the aesthetic industry has undergone a massive paradigm shift. The days of simply masking wrinkles with heavy dermal fillers to inflate the face are fading. The focus for 2025 and beyond is biological rejuvenation, using biostimulators like PLLA and Kate to proactively trick the body's immune system into repairing its own structural foundation.
And third, the sci-fi future is already here in the clinic. Energy-based devices, whether it's light energy from lasers hunting down zombie cells or electrical radiofrequency heat rewelding broken collagen, are totally changing the game. Meanwhile, exosome treatments are acting as biological USB drives, uploading regenerative software directly into your damaged skin cells.
And if we connect all this biological science to the bigger picture, it means we're no longer just practicing anti-aging or chasing a superficial, stretched aesthetic. We have truly entered the era of longevity medicine for the skin. The goal is no longer to look like a frozen, overfilled plastic doll. The goal is to cultivate skin that is biologically resilient, structurally robust, and genuinely healthy at a cellular level.
I couldn't have said it better. It's really about optimizing the biology you actually have. Thank you so much for joining us in the lab today for this deep dive. If you had an aha moment, or if you're suddenly reconsidering your daily sunscreen habit, please make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss an exploration with us. But before we go, I want to leave you with one final mind-bending thought to chew on. We just spent this entire deep dive talking about how energy-based devices and lasers can hunt down and clear out toxic aging zombie cells to make our facial skin biologically young again. So consider this. How long until medical science figures out how to use these exact same targeted energy therapies to clear out senescent cells deep inside our internal organs to potentially reverse systemic whole body aging?
Now, that is a profound question worth exploring.
Until next time, keep diving deep.